Hi everyone, Ryan Miles here from On Tilt Gaming, and I just came back from Providence, won the GP there in the Wanderer format, and while I was there, I had the opportunity to talk to a couple of you guys who came up to me and said we really like your content, the Twitch streams, the YouTube videos, and talking to those people made me really want to do that more. Like it's really awesome when I get to meet people in real life that I've impacted over the internet and just by doing what I love to do. And I thought about why I don't do those kind of videos or those streams anymore. And it's because they take a lot of time to make, and I just don't have a lot of time in my personal life, like to sit down all at once and just bang out a project. But I was thinking that I do have probably 15 to 20 minutes every day that I could sit down and maybe just do a video, right? Like I think about Force of Will all the time. Why don't I just make a video where I sit down and talk about it? So this is going to be a pretty minimalistic video. It's just going to be me talking. You can ignore the video, turn off my face, put in some headphones and listen to it on your way to work or while you're at work or school or whatever. And you got summer break, whatever's going on. Pretty chill video, but today we're going to be talking about the Wanderer Banlist. So what was on the Wanderer Banlist and how did it impact the metagame that just happened at the event this past weekend, right? So obviously the two best decks to play were Kirik and Scheherazade, with Scheherazade eventually coming out on top. And there was a mono green Grim that got into the top 8, but unfortunately Mike San Martino lost to me in top 8, so sorry about that. But what did these bans do to shape that meta? Like obviously I think that Prisia and Fox would be probably better than Kirik and Scheherazade if they were at full power, but they're not. So how do we find that middle ground where there are multiple viable decks and it's not just, oh, we banned the top decks, now the second best decks are immediately oppressive. So do we keep banning things? Do we bring things back? What's the middle ground we want to find? So let's go through the ban list card by card. Think about, does this card need to be here? And then also think about cards that maybe should be here, right? Especially given the event that just happened this weekend. So first card on the ban list is Prisia, True Beastmaster. I don't think there's any argument here that this card needs to stay banned. It's just better than Kirik in every way. It's the best aggro ruler. It's a good mid-range ruler because she can give things swiftness, and she's just so oppressive just by J activating, and there are just ways to give her swiftness, which is not okay at all. Prisia, I think, needs to stay banned. There's no other way I would want to navigate a ban list to make sure that she isn't oppressive other than just making sure you can't play her. Next up, Tell a Fairy Tale. This one's a bit interesting for me. Obviously shooting out Captain Hook is pretty good for 3 mana, if your ruler is Grim, obviously. But is Grim, so the Grim deck that actually did make top 8, right, because the deck did actually top this event, it was mono green, so it's not even playing white stones to be able to play Tell a Fairy Tale. So is the potential turn 2 Tell a Fairy Tale going to be a problem? I want to say yes. I think that because it's just a single card that you need to play Captain Hook on turn 3, it's just Captain Hook is just a 10/10 that sets your opponent back 2 turns, and that's just very, very strong. Obviously, there are cards like Lorite, Prison and Lunar Lake, Otherworld Dream, Seal of Wind and Light. There's a lot of things that can interact with this, but you don't want to just lose the game on the spot because you didn't have those answers. And the fact that the real problem with this is the fact that the person who casts the Captain Hook gets to choose the order the stones go back. That means that for example, if you want to stop the Captain Hook from hitting you in the face for 10 you could miscalc it, or you could play Final Battle. But if your opponent knows your deck or the type of deck that you're playing and knows what out you have, they could put that special magic stone that is the color that you need on below another stone, and that kind of thing makes it difficult to play the game when you only get 1 mana. So I do think that Tell a Fairy Tale needs to stay banned. Next up is Law of Silence. I think this is definitely a card that needs to stay banned. It's just the things that any deck can do with that. Arla, Fox, Gwyber decks, Scheherazade, just stop. I'm not going to talk about that card at all. Morgiana the Wise Servant. Morgiana the Wise Servant is very, very good for combo decks, but it doesn't actually generate any advantage. It's I kind of like this card. I think that because Guinevere's banned, right? Because Orb is banned, because True Blade exists, things like that, I could honestly see Morgiana not being as much of a problem and really helping out the true combo decks that want to exist in the format, like Spinning Myths and stuff like that. Obviously, I think that you need to consider what Morgiana would do in a Scheherazade deck. Morgiana plus Approaching the Truth sounds pretty terrifying, right? But you're not playing Morgiana turn 1 because you're Callstone Pass to leave open Approaching the Truth. like you could play Morgiana turn 2, but your turn 2 play is Gretel, and then you're not playing you don't want to use your last mana to play Morgiana, so maybe it comes down turn 3, but by then you've probably already used your Approaching the Truth, and you've also probably already used your Scarlet's Agony. So you really have to start like resetting your draw card options in like the traditional current Scheherazade lists to actually get much going out of Morgiana. I guess like if you play Morgiana and then play a Tama, you get to start getting hyper consistent. But I don't know if a Scheherazade deck would be able to facilitate playing both Morgiana and Tama. You know, that's just taking up a lot of not instant speed slots in the deck. But like Morgiana would do a lot for decks like, I'm thinking like literally Adam Brawley decks, right? And Adam Brawley decks are already kind of struggling because of cards like Otherworld Dreams, where you lose the impactful entry ability of Adam Brawley when it's canceled. Gwyber is just easily answered by Keurig and stuff like that. So those decks are already in a not super good place. Any deck playing Cheshire Cat really like that is not having a good time. So I think Morgiana would be fine to come off the ban list because of the other cards that we currently have banned. You know, like the Reflecting Guinevere being the main two. So I think Morgiana should come back and probably shouldn't have been on this list. Next up, Pumpkin Witch. Yeah, stay banned. Not going to talk about it. It's just, we know what that card can do. Whispers from the Abyss, same thing. Just, you know, facilitating FTKs, OTKs. It's just... it's not fun gameplay. You wanna like keep the power level away from that kind of stuff, but yeah, I don't think Whisper is something that I need to talk about either. Levitine, same thing. So these are all the old cards that have been banned for 2 ban lists now. Morgiana is the only one I can think of that I would want to come back, and it's largely because I don't think it would be very good in the current top deck, so it would help out other decks that could use it. And I think that it's not super good because of True Blade. So I think Morgiana out of the old cards can come back, right? So next up, the cards that were most recently banned. First up, we have Demonic Dead. Demonic Dead is obviously very good in Fox, but we already lost like Griffin, so it's not a big deal that, you know, we have Demonic Dead banned too, right? Well, my favorite archetype in the history of Force of Will, and my favorite card of all time is Nyarlathotep, the original one, or maybe not the original one, the Resonator, the 8/8. So Cthulhu's are near and dear to my heart. I think they're absolutely a blast to play. 0 mana cards are great, even if you have to, like, expending alternate resources to cast a card is a very fun mechanic because it like changes how you want to play the game. But it can also be very, very strong if left unchecked. And Demonic Dead, I think, is one of those cards that would let Cthulhu's go unchecked. It means you only have to play red Resonators to, like, facilitate, like, even if you have, like, so Nyarlathotep specifically can be cast off of 2 black Resonators, and so can Haster, and Yogg-Sothoth can be cast for 3 black Resonators. Like, if you just have 2 or 3 Demonic Dead, like, you can cast that for 0 mana, just 1,000 life points, and just play a bunch of cards. Obviously, the life total thing like does matter, but like alternatively, you can play cards like Rook Egg, you can play cards like Red Cap even to make sure that your red Resonator requirement's filled, or just so that you're not paying all of your life total to constantly do that. But again, it's just instant speed, using life total, 0 mana, just not using the traditional resources of the game. And when you're not using the traditional resources and you're leveraging other resources, it kind of lets you do more actions in a turn than should really be allowed, or something. It's more oh my god, I cannot speak, I apologize. More actions than your opponent is able to interact with because they cannot interact with alternate resources. You're just being proactive with alternate resources. So while I would love to see Demonic Dead come back, I do think that this ban was correct, even in the light of the Fox ban, because I think Cthulhu would abuse the hell out of it. So I think Demonic Dead should stay gone. Next up, Severing Winds. I don't really have a complaint about Severing Winds being gone. Again, 0 mana things, like cards that do not require a resource to use, lets you do more actions per turn than your opponent, and that is a problem. So I think the Severing Winds should stay banned for that reason. Yes, there are ways to play around it, but ultimately the control decks that draw a lot of cards are going to get a lot of value out of Severing Winds because they can, you know, you play a card, I counter it with a card. You play a card, I counter it with a card. Eventually, like, if my counters cost more than your cards, you might be able to tap me out, and then you can actually play something. But if I have Severing Winds, it never ever matters. So I think that Severing Winds just can't exist. I don't think it, yeah. So next up, Cheshire Cat's Assistance. So we banned Horn, and we banned... no, I don't. Yeah, I think with Regalia existing, Cheshire Cat's Assistance, it's just... Yeah, I mean, no. I'm trying to think if there's a world where it's okay, but not in Regalia. Like, it's okay in New Frontiers without Regalia, but yeah, as long as Regalia exists, some degenerate stuff, it's kind of like Whisper of the Abyss. You just don't want that open-ended mechanic existing in the game. I don't want to see that come back. Horn of the Sacred Beasts is the next one. And this is banned, I think, largely because of Tree 2, the Malefic Tree of Yggdrasil or something like that. You really don't want a single card that prevents your opponent from winning the game unless they have a specific like answer in their deck. For example, like if your tree opponent plays a horn, they need a burn spell to kill you, and that's just bad gameplay. It makes your deck design very awkward. You don't want to just like randomly like have an auto lose matchup game 1 against tree because you cannot deal with horn cycle horn cycle horn cycle horn for the end of the game, you know. So that feels pretty bad. Definitely like horn being banned here. Even with Cheshire Resistance banned, I think horn also needs to be banned for different reasons. Change the World Orb of Illusion. So this is a card that makes Reflect almost unplayable. There were a couple of Reflect decks at the event yesterday or Saturday, and they were doing pretty well. Does Orb need to stay banned? Well, what else does Orb do? So it's good with Reflect, obviously. It's good. I mean, you think about it in the context of Powerless Dragonoid existing. Like, green's still the most popular color. The best 2 decks right now are Reflect, or Scheherazade and Kirik, and Scheherazade mains Powerless Dragonoid, and Kirik usually sides it. And most decks playing green side Powerless Dragonoid because of Kirik, right? And because of Split Heaven and Earth. So, does Change the World need to stay banned? Can Reflect be allowed to be a deck? I don't think that Reflect has been too much of a problem in the meta with Orb legal, and that's probably largely due to Fox, but I don't know. I think that this is gonna... I'm worried that if Scheherazade plays Orb, that would be a problem, right? Because then you're just playing, like, Scheherazade just draws a lot of cards, and even sometimes when you're playing Scheherazade, like, on turn 2, you're discarding a card on turn 2 because you have more than 7 cards in hand. So just being able to plop down an Orb and then start generating more advantage for later in the game sounds like it would be a problem. But I could see the other side as well. I could see Reflect being the, like, natural counter, the natural predator of Scheherazade. So I could go either way. It would be something I would want to like actually play around with to see if it would be too strong. But I think Orb could be legal in Wanderer and not be too much of a problem, right? Next up is Griffin Racing Across Darkness, and I actually would be interested in seeing this card not banned with the express condition that Fox was banned, like just the ruler, right? So Griffin's a pretty cool card because it costs 6 mana, and when it enters the field, you put the top 2 cards of your Magic Stone deck into your library. And that's really, really fun for decks like Lumia with End of Days, for pretty much any deck with Dance of Shadows. Just the ability to have a Resonator that has that powerful of an ability and is a 12/12 flyer, just like it feels really good when you're able to cast that like at a fair price, like with End of Days. End of Days might be like the fringe like example that's just like overpowering, but like obviously Fox, it's too goddamn good. But with Griffin, I think that like a powerful reanimator strategy is kept in check by the existence of Evil Elemental Uprising, and I think that any Tier 1 Reanimator deck would be hard-pressed to exist just because of the presence of that card, because Evil Elemental Uprising exists. And the fact that Scheherazade gets to main deck it is kind of insane. So I think it would be really cool to unban Griffin and let those decks try and compete in the context of a format with Evil Elemental Uprising and, I don't know, Barrier Seal, stuff like that. Like, I just think that'd be a really cool deck that would be like maybe top of tier 2, but right now it can't exist because they banned Griffin, and they're just like, oh yeah, but you can still play Fox, you know, you can try, and it's almost impossible to play Fox right now, especially with Demonic Dead banned. Like, New Frontiers Fox is better than Wanderer Fox because New Frontiers Fox has Demonic Dead. So I think Griffin could come back. I would just like to see Fox banned instead because I don't want those 2 cards existing at the same time. But Griffin's the more fun and interactive piece that could bring another deck into viability that is not the 2 that we currently have. And last but not least in the ban list, we have Guinevere. And Guinevere is, oh my god, my second favorite card of all time, behind, of course, Thotep. But does Guinevere need to stay banned? So, probably. I'm going to try and think really hard of an argument to say no, because I personally want to see her back in the format. She's one of my favorite cards, but oh man, she's too good, right? So the second best deck right now is Kirik. It's a red deck. It abuses Play Dead to sacrifice creatures with Cthulhu and then bring them back and then attack again and just do a whole bunch of nonsense. So what happens when Kirik gets Guinevere? Alright, so first off, let's take a step forward, right, and say that I want to ban Cthulhu. I don't think Cthulhu should exist. I think that play dead Cthulhu is some nonsense. I think that, again, 0 mana cards are a problem, and with like cards like Nyarlathotep and Haster and whatnot, like they require a bit more resources to get on the field, and they don't have swiftness, which I think is huge. When you're able to play 0 mana cards with swiftness, now suddenly the fact that you're able to take more actions than your opponent in a single turn becomes very, very strong when those actions represent swiftness and damage and board presence and a whole bunch of nonsense, you know? Like there's a way in Wanderer right now to get like 4 Cthulhu's on board turn 2, and then, okay, yeah, you just hit your opponent for 20 damage, but you also have 20 damage of power still on the board, and that's just a lot. So I think Cthulhu should be banned. So with that out of the way, if Cthulhu is banned, can we bring back Guinevere? And my answer, God, I want it to be yes. But can it? I don't. Okay, I think the answer is no, guys. I'm sorry for baiting you. I think Guinevere is a very fun card. And again, it does have the same thing with Morgiana, right? Like it dies to Trueblade, and I think that Trueblade's problem card for other reasons, but yeah, I think Guinevere should stay banned. Especially because I want to bring back Morgiana, right? I can't bring back Morgiana and bring back Guinevere and then just say, yeah, Trueblade can answer these, but then every deck suddenly has to be green still, and that's just not fun. So yeah, I think Guinevere, it was very correct for Forceful to ban Guinevere, and I hate them for it. So moving on, what cards were popular this weekend that really pushed Kirik and Scheherazade over the top? Is there anything we should do about them? Let's think. Let's talk about Scheherazade first, right? So what are the cards that were running like all the Scheherazade lists? Gretel, for sure, was one of them. I think Gretel's pretty cool in a lot of strategies, though. I don't think that Gretel was inherently a problem for that. It's just mostly the fact that Scheherazade just does a lot of stupid things. So where is Scheherazade going to be in the context of, man, what does Scheherazade do that keeps other decks down, right? It's just the bunch of stuff. Like Scarlet's Agony means that aggro decks have a hard time closing out games before Scheherazade's able to stabilize. Last Days of a Powerless Dragonoid means that you can't like split them or use your burn spells effectively without like baiting out the activation, stuff like that. Evil Elemental Uprising keeps Reanimator decks in check, even though I don't think there's any good Reanimator decks floating around right now. So what do you do to Scheherazade to make her a tier 1 and not a tier 0 ruler? Or like, do you just not let that card exist at all? I think the main problem, right, is just how efficient counterspells are. And it's like Scheherazade does a lot of really powerful things, but the fact that all of her stuff is quick cast and cheap, like if you think about like the last instant speed control deck that really existed, it was like 6 Sages. Like you would cast 6 Sages at instant speed, and then they would have really cool effects, and they would compound on each other, and they would like build this unbreakable board, and they would cancel everything you did, and they would stop every attack you ever did, and they would just win the game like that. But 6 Sages were super expensive. Like they were like 3-4 mana for the good ones, like Feasting and whatnot, and Almerius. But the dolls are just, they don't have super cool effects. They just are 10-10s and like 11-11s and stuff like that. So when you try and counter spells also got cheaper, right? Because back then you had like Cake Zone and you had like Seal of Wind and Light, maybe, if you want to like say that 6 Sages made it that far into the meta. But like we have Otherworld Dreams, we have Fair Spell, we got some like nonsense for one Wall of Wind. We got 1 mana like cancel spells, so we can threaten to play a big guy while also holding up in counter magic. So I think overall counter spells really need to be looked at in Wanderer. I think it's like the main thing that is just keeping interesting, fun decks from existing. It's literally just counter spells. So Otherworld Dream, Seal of Wind and Light, Wall of Wind. How do we look at, or Fire Spell too? How do we look at these cards and say, okay, these are cards that are problems. How are we going to stop? I think if you really look at counter spells, and then just, I would even say maybe act all of them. So Otherworld Dreams goes, that's like a given. Does Seal of Wind and Light go? Does Wall of Wind go? I would say Seal. I would say cut Otherworld Dreams, cut Seal, and then let Scheherazade try and play, right? Because now you're looking at the only way that you can really cancel things is like Zeeks, and you've got Keen Sense, so you're not just like canceling any card with a single card. You're canceling either a Resonator or a Chant. Like you can't like if I'm playing a Resonator deck, right? How many Zeeks are you playing? Is it 4? Or like if I'm playing a control deck, how many Keen Sense are you playing? Is it 4? Like, are you playing 4 copies of each of these cards? Like, I don't feel like you can, right? You have to mix it up. So if I'm a Resonator deck and I'm just going threatening Resonator, threatening Resonator, threatening Resonator, you're gonna run out of your Kha'Zixes pretty quick, and you're gonna be sitting on a bunch of Keen Sense. Like, man, I really wish this guy would play a spell. So I think if you cut Otherworld Dreams and Seal out of the format, and this is like very hypothetical, right? This is just some thoughts. Like I said, it's going to be a very casual, like, kind of video thing. So if those go, like, what does Scheherazade do when they leave their mana open, right? Like, it has to be, like, removal and stuff, right? So that means that Scheherazade is going to have a harder problem with, like, other control decks. I think that's a good place to start. I'm not saying this is the end-all, be-all, but I think if Otherworld Dreams and Seal went away, then other decks would have a lot easier time trying to get in a word in edgewise. Like, I'm not saying this is the, like, everything, but, like, that's what I think might help a lot with the Scheherazade problem. And again, I do think that, like, Scheherazade is still at a very high power level as a ruler because of the story deck and because adults have quick cast. But in the Wanderer format, there are a lot of other powerful strategies that can exist. Like, if you bring back Griffin, you've got Lumia Reanimator. Like, if you bring back Morgiana, you've got Gwybert combo decks that are a lot more consistent all of a sudden. And if you ban the counter spells, that means, like, Adam Brawley is more reliable, Captain Hook is more reliable. Like, these win conditions are more reliable because they're not just getting canceled for 1 or 2 mana. And, like, there's a lot more things that go into the deck building, like analyzing the metagame. Do I need to worry about Resonators? Do I need to worry about spells? That kind of stuff. So that's kind of what I would look to balance Scheherazade. And then for Keurig, like I said, I would ban Cthulhu because forget about that card. This actually went a lot longer than I thought it would, but I hope you guys enjoyed listening to just some ramblings, and I will be back tomorrow to talk more about something else. You let me know what you'd like to hear about, and we'll see what happens, guys. Thank you very much for listening / watching, and stay beautiful.